conservative,
Christian, mother, wife,
Air Force veteran,
gun rights advocate.
This is Stacy on the Right. Here's your host, Stacy Washington.
Indeed it is, and I'm still with you tonight. In fact, we have so much more show for you. One of the best things about Hour 3 is that we're still talking about everything that matters and bringing you the news and information that you need. This time with our good friend Carl Sabo, who is Vice President and General Counsel for NetChoice. The website is netchoice.org. He's a professor of Internet Law at the George Mason University's Scalia Law School. Carl, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, so AI is radically changing the way people do things. I'm noticing a lot of the influencers who are in the business space on Instagram are doing these reels about how you can use AI to automate systems and to kind of take the place of duties that you might have found rudimentary. They're not suggesting that the AI is a full-blown assistant, but they're saying that it can automate some processes and make your life a lot easier in the workplace. So that's a lot of what's going on. But for professors, AI is actually clogging things up because they have more ways for the deciphering of cheating that it's creating work for them, I guess. Talk to us about this.
Yeah, this is a tough question. Now, I mean, my kid just went back to school, as many kids across the country did. And this is not just kids going back to school in elementary, middle, high school, but as you point out, universities. And they've really been at the forefront of a lot of technology, for better or for worse. I mean, 3 years of learning remotely via Zoom. They've had to figure that one out. Well, now we're throwing a new technology at them, AI. And how are they going to figure out and navigate this in the education space? So as you point out, Stacey, AI is great at kind of doing some rudimentary type content. And anyone who's ever played around with it, it's kind of magical. I can type in a couple of words and say, write me a 500-word essay on Macbeth, and it will turn it out. But the thing is, a lot of teachers are taking the wrong approach when it comes to AI. They're trying to ban this technology. They're trying to declare it illegal. They're trying to essentially bury their head in the sand and pretend that it doesn't exist. And that's kind of the wrong approach when it comes to AI and technology like this. So about 20 years ago, we heard the same concerns about new technology infiltrating the classroom and disrupting education. And that came in the form of calculators. And calculators in the classroom were supposed to destroy arithmetic and mathematics as we know it. But that's not what happened. We still teach mathematics in school. And what calculators actually did is they unlocked our ability to do more complicated math at earlier ages. So you have high schoolers now doing advanced calculus and even more advanced mathematics at a younger age. The type of calculations that were not possible before the advent of calculators. So what did we do? Did we try to abandon calculators? No, we embraced them. We figured out how to leverage them as a tool to make education better, to make the students' aptitude better. And the same thing has to be true with AI. AI will be used by our students. They were used by my students as I'm teaching at George Mason Law School. And I can take one of two steps. I can say, don't use it, which is kind of like tying one hand behind their back, or I can help teach them to use it intelligently. And when it comes to showing aptitude, we as teachers are going to have to do a lot more than just having students regurgitate content. We're going to have to push them on a mental level and have them do the type of analysis and critical thinking that computers and robots just can't do. Computers and robots, very good at spitting out statistics, not so good at doing the deep dive, human-based analysis that we as teachers must begin to require.
Okay, so what you're talking about makes a ton of sense as you're discussing this here. But if you go to what what professors are actually doing in the classroom, if you look at how they're approaching their students, there's a lot of ground to be covered between here and there, because the calculator presented a new obstacle, but it was something that you could see if your students were using, right? If your student brought a calculator to class, you could see them using it. If you didn't see them using it on their homework, you would see the evidence of them using it in the classroom where they didn't have the calculator because they would not be able to do the calculations or they would be much slower at it. So eventually, the use of the calculator would be evidenced. Is there a way to tell in the same manner that professors could see if students were using calculators and the impact of that? Is there a similar way to gauge the use of AI and its impact on student learning?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's going to require more of teachers. Look, having somebody else write your paper for you is not a new concept. Students have been doing that for 70 years, asking a friend or the smart kid in class to write their paper for them or do their homework for them. This is not a new concept, except instead of it being the smart kid in class, it's now a computer. So as a teacher, we're going to have to actually know our students. We're going to have to actually pay attention to them in class as we teach them. And so that when they give us a work product, when they turn in an assignment, when they turn in an essay that is so beyond the aptitude that they are showing in class, that's a red flag. It was a red flag 70 years ago so that we could figure out if it was another student that had written the paper. And it's a red flag today, whether it's a computer that has written the paper. And that's part of the challenge. We as teachers need to know our students better. But by the same token, when it comes to the actual technology itself, it will force the students to know the material. And what I mean by that is when AI does its calculations, what it essentially does, it takes a bunch of really complex sentences and it breaks them down into bite-sized chunks. And it kind of looks at what is the next likely word in a sentence. So a simple example would be, the sky is blank. Typically, the answer is going to be the sky is blue because most everybody writes the sky is blue, the sky is blue. But if it were identical coming out of the computer, it would be very robotic. So the way AI works, it throws in a bit of randomness. So occasionally it will write the sky is green. Now, of course, we all know that's false. That's called a hallucination. But these misrepresentations, these misstatements will be present in papers. And so if a student turns in a paper, it is very likely to have a factual error in it. So the students have to master the content before they turn in the paper. Even if they were to have the whole paper written by the AI, when they review it, they'll have to master it. Second way to detect it is you can just kind of read it. And after you've read a couple of papers generated by AI, you start to see patterns because that's what it is. It is a pattern-based system. And the papers all come out as robotic, and that's to be expected because they're written by, well, a robot. They're missing that intangible, that human element. And as teachers, as professors, we can feel that when it is all written by a robot. So we need to teach our students how to leverage AI as a tool to make their writing better, not to be the replacement for writing. The other important component is as we send students into the workforce, because that's ultimately the goal. The goal is to train you to be a successful adult. If we were to send students into the world who didn't know math, didn't know reading, didn't know writing, we would have failed as teachers. Now we have computer literacy, which is sought by all employers, and add to that now AI literacy, which is going to be the next thing that employers are seeking in the prospects that they're hiring. So this is going to be another skill set that we need to teach students. And we can't do that if we bury our heads in the sand and pretend the technology doesn't exist. We need to teach them how to use the tools, how to also learn and communicate complex ideas in simple ways, something computers are not necessarily great at. And then we must then teach them the fundamentals with an eye to recognize that they will use AI, they will use these services, but they will have the foundational knowledge on which to build, just like we did with calculators.
So I think, so we've had a lot of people on the show, just full disclosure, we've had people on who are enthusiastically supportive of, the use of artificial intelligence. We've had people come on who they don't really have a dog in the fight, but they've talked about the fact that AI is only as good as the programming, and in military uses, AI will kill the drone operator if it feels the drone operator is going to get between it and its target of achieving a certain number of search and rescue or kills or whatever it's doing. And so they have to program it in that it cannot kill the drone operator, or the AI will figure out a way to kill it so that it can continue on with its mission. And so AI is only as good as the programming. But when you're talking about the usage of it, like whether or not we should expose children to it, whether or not we should jump on board, I kind of feel like that train has already left the station. I literally was using Midjourney, and I got to a place where I couldn't continue on. Mm-hmm. And so when our 20-year-old college student was home over Labor Day weekend, I said, "Hey, I'm stuck. I need help." And she just came in, commented my laptop. She was like, "Oh, what are you trying to do at this point?" And I'm like, "Oh, well, I've done this, this, and this. I'm stuck here." And she said, "Oh." And she immediately saw where I was stuck and unstuck me, right? And so Midjourney is an AI. It draws things for you. And I couldn't get past a certain point. I'd even gotten to some websites, like some YouTube videos where people are talking about using it and saying that it can be a bit tricky to launch initially, but once you get in, it's easy to use. And that's what I was experiencing. And so, kids are naturally more technologically savvy, and their affinity for it is much more natural. But to deny them the opportunity to kind of work with the technology is basically just putting off the inevitable. Or am I seeing this in the wrong way?
That's exactly right. I mean, what it is doing is it is democratizing access and democratizing the ability to create. So right now we have programmers. And one of the challenge with computer programming is making sure your code compiles. That means all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. The AI can actually go through and figure out where you have errors in your code incredibly fast. That's amazing. That's an incredible tool. And what that will allow is for programmers to actually move on to the next part of a project rather than spending hours trying to find one little typo in lines and lines of code. Similarly, with your Midjourney example, figuring out how to use Photoshop is a Herculean task. I've tried it time and time again. I have tried hours and hours of resources, and I just cannot make it work. But Midjourney can give me a great start and create a foundation of a shape or an image or a character from which I want to further develop. And that's what we're talking about here. The AI is not doing everything. It's giving you a good start. It's kind of like when you go to write a paper and you can't figure out the first sentence. Somebody gives it to you, and then you're able to get going. That's what we're talking about here. And to your point, Stacey, is if our students are not able to know how to do this, think of all the tools that they will not be able to bring to the workforce. And we're not talking about eliminating work. In fact, as anyone who's ever seen the dozens of help wanted signs everywhere, I myself am trying to hire for jobs, we have a labor shortage. And what this will do is it's not going to eliminate work, but it's going to eliminate some boring work. So a simple example would be, how many times have you picked up the phone and gotten on, tried to talk to a government agent about something going on? Your passport needs to get renewed and it's all tied up, or you're waiting on that check to come in the mail, and you'll sit on hold for 6 hours and then they'll probably hang up on you. This is where AI can actually step in. We can get chatbots to actually automate those processes, get you the information you need immediately, rather than have people in phone banks just sitting there waiting for you to make a call. And so that's going to free up the people in the phone banks to actually do other work. And that's what we're talking about. And as a teacher, I think it is my job to teach these students, to teach my students the powers of the technology. Similarly, it is my job to teach them the fundamentals of the law, the legal cases, all that stuff. And I do that through seminar-based teaching, something that you can't cheat on because you're talking to me in class. I'm teaching them communication skills, something the AI can't do because it can't replace the human being giving a presentation. So this is where teachers are going to have to up their game. No longer can we get by saying, I want a 500-word essay on Hamlet. We are going to have to actually challenge our students intellectually and force them to take information and turn it into knowledge. And that's something that AI just can't do.
So this is a huge leap. What's the likelihood? And you're in this space, you're in the education space, so you can speak from experience with your colleagues. What's the likelihood of people getting on board in the education space of that paradigm you just described? Because that doesn't sound easy to sell to me at all. Like that, I wouldn't want to be the one who's responsible for making sure.
It's incredibly hard. There are few people who like change less than teachers. I've been doing it this way for 50 years, and this is the way I'm going to continue to do it. And it's going to be tough. But the thing is, the students are going to leverage this technology regardless. We can go to a more present example from calculators in the classrooms to Wikipedia, or when the internet first came around. Students didn't need to spend hours and hours and hours in libraries researching content, pulling card catalogs, and all those wonderful things that we had to do as kids. No, instead, a couple clicks of a button, they can get an answer. And teachers had to adapt. They had to stop assigning mundane research assignments. And yes, there will be teachers who fight back. There will be teachers who say, you cannot use AI. And it's just not going to work, because as you point out with your own experience, your children, my children, they will know this technology. They will figure out a way to use this technology. And so teachers are going to, heck, we could go back to closed book, no computer exams if you really want to start testing knowledge and data retention. That's a simple solution. It's something we used to do a long time ago. That's a simple solution. Some teachers don't like that because they don't like to have students take exams in the classroom or something like that. But that's a simple example. But ultimately, we want to teach them to use it as a tool, just like the internet is a tool, just like the calculator is a tool. And teachers will fight back. But we have to ask ourselves, what is our goal as teachers? Is it to teach the same thing that we taught 50 years ago, or is it designed to give them the tools and knowledge so that they can be productive members of society? I lean towards the latter. At the end of the day, the technology is here. And we have two options. We can either pretend it doesn't exist, or we can embrace it. And I fall into the latter category. And it's going to take a while for a lot of teachers to join me. But I think the teachers who get on board early will better understand the technology. They will learn how to use it with their students. And subsequently, we will all be better off for it at the end. Because just like how calculators have empowered students to do mathematics well beyond anything that our grandparents could have done at the same age, AI will do the same, if not more. So I'm very enthusiastic on the technology. I think that there are a lot of opportunities that need to be embraced. And at the end of the day, whether it's people worrying about AI is racist or the Terminator, we have a lot of tools at our disposal, not just our intellect, but we have thousands of laws on the books today that all apply to AI. So my advice for teachers is take a look at yourself, take a look at your students, and we're going to have to kind of pull up our pants and get on board and do the hard work of getting to know our students better, giving them new, innovative, and challenging assignments, and teaching them how to leverage these tools so that they will be in the best position to go forth when they leave our classroom.
Well, you make a passionate case for it. I do think it's going to take some more selling, and if it's to happen, it will have to be a coordinated effort. Also, between parents will have to be on board as well. There are some concerns about what the AI can do. And I kind of feel like there's different levels of AI, just like there are different levels of calculators, right? There's a scientific calculator. There's a calculator you have on your phone, which you can do more calculations. You just have to go to a website to do it. But if you just want to use the simple calculator on your phone, there's only so much it can do before you need to, kind of level up. And with AI, it's the same thing. The military uses for AI, my concerns there are different than the concerns at the
right.
at the level that you're discussing, and especially the level that where I'm interacting with AI, where I'm just kind of tentatively picking my way forward with things that I might be able to make a use out of it for. So there's a lot more to learn, and things have become infinitely more complex, but I guess it's similar in a lot of ways to what you have compared the calculator. At least it's an analogy that we can readily wrap our minds around, and we can see the way it connects to what we're doing now and help us to kind of bring it down to a more manageable level for conversation, going to eliminate the hyperbole and really get down to brass tacks. What can we do? What are we willing to do? And certainly, what can we get those in the education space to do? Because we need the kids to not be kind of off on their own, figuring it out, just completely off to themselves, because we don't want to have anything to do with it. That's the alternative. If we don't do something with it educationally, kids are still going to learn how to use it. We just won't be a part of it. So.
And you make an important point in there, too. You talked about the involvement of parents. And keep in mind, I'm at the university level, so this is going to be different from kids in grade school. It's going to be different from students in middle school. And then in high school, you're starting to get that evolution. Now, I had an anecdote of this just the other day with my own son. He's, in fifth grade, and he wanted to run his paper through a spell and grammar check. And I said, no, that was my job as a parent. I said, go get a dictionary. And he asked me, of course, what is a dictionary? And then I have to find one from a neighbor. But that's the responsibility of the parent. I decided that, no, he needs to learn this fundamental. It was not the teacher. It was me as the parent. So I think that's also a really important aspect that needs to be included in this conversation is what is age appropriate for my child, not just the student, but for my child, because what is appropriate for my fifth grader is going to be very different from what is appropriate for the 25-year-old who is sitting in my law school classroom. And that's where parents and teachers also need to be on the same page. And parent involvement in education is also going to be core to this conversation.
Ultimately, we have to be plugged into this, and we have to begin to absorb it at whatever level we can and partner with teachers. As the kids are out in the space, they're really like, they're like, oh, it can do this. Oh, it can do that. And I know that because I'm watching the Instagram influencers, and what they're doing is they're connecting it to things that you're doing in your business. So they're already figuring out how they can monetize AI by teaching people who don't know anything about it how they can use it to make their businesses easier to manage, easier to run. So if they're at that level where they're figuring out how to monetize teaching other people about it, I mean, we got to get in there. we can't just let a few people know how to work it. We need to all have some understanding of it. And we're all using it anyway. When you're on the phone and it says, tell me, describe why you called today, you're dealing with an AI there. Like it's already so deeply embedded in what we're doing. A lot of the prompts and things that we're using, the knowledge base on websites, these are all tools that are connected to AI. So just so people don't think that you're completely like, I don't use AI at all. You kind of do. Everyone's kind of using it.
Yeah, every time we do an autocorrect on text messages, we're teaching it. Every time we do a search and it gives us the wrong result and we do it again, we're teaching it. We are making those algorithms better so that they can provide us the information that we seek in the most efficient manner. Because at the end of the day, that's what we want. If I go into a gas station and ask for directions and they give me bad directions, I'm just not served well, right? Same thing's true with these algorithms. If I do a search and it gives me bad directions, it takes me to the wrong place, that's not very good for me. It's not very good for the system. So, yes, we are all dealing with different levels of AI all the time. We've been dealing with it for well into 15 years now. Just now that it can do generative AI, I think we are now unlocking a new tool for innovation and a new opportunity to eliminate some of the boring work that a lot of us have. And just in the same way that tractors did change farm jobs, they made production of food much more efficient. We can expect similar evolutions from AI in the general workspace. And so that's why I'm really excited. And that's why it is imperative that at least at the high school and college level, that we as teachers prepare our students to use these tools, because that's what employers will seek. And guess what? Middle school teachers will eventually start teaching some aspects of it, and it will probably make its way into the elementary schools. So I'm kind of at the forefront as a university professor, but it's going to make its way through the system, and teachers, we can either hop on board or get left behind. And if we get left behind, that's not going to be good for anybody. So that's kind of the future we're looking at.
And I think you're spot on, and it's a conversation that requires more exploration, which we can do when we have wonderful experts like yourself who are willing to stay up with us and join us on Stacy on the Right. We're so grateful for your time. It's always great to have you here, Carl Sabo, Vice President and General Counsel for NetChoice. Your website is netchoice.org. You're also a professor of internet law at George Mason University's Scalia Law School. We love the Scalia Law School. Thank you so much for coming on tonight.
Thank you so much. It's a robust conversation, and you do a great job with it.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate it. I have such huge interest in this because we have these 3 young adult kids who are just so sharp in this area. I have to work hard to stay up with those guys. So let's have more on the other side of this break. If you want to join me, 866-95-PATRIOT, 866-957-2874.